Hey everyone, and welcome back to Jaraci Cup number 10. Let's not talk about it, or Jaraci Cup number 10 will be delete. But we're gonna continue some games here. We're gonna continue with some games here from Group B, I think. Oh yeah, look, Descara's already put it in the chat for us. This is between Descara and Houston. And Descara, definitely lower seed here, you would expect. I believe all the tournaments that he's played in recently, he's been in the finals, if I recall correctly, so... He does have the first faction pick, gonna grab Coalition here, and Houston gonna respond with Conf. And Descara gonna pick Torrent Alt as the map. Carrier production upgrade comes out very, very quickly here. And, yeah, looks like this will be the typical LED spam game. As for Houston, still not sure what his plan is, but with the base runner retire and a couple guys on RUs, looks like this is going to be ref mode. And a pretty good timing on that as well, 29:17 I saw on the clock, so they'll be happy with how that's turned out. Question is, what happens next? Now we know, of course, if you watch the last game that I cast, this was between A Game and Cookies. Yeah, that's right. It was on this map as well. These top tier players, man, they just be spamming Torrent Crater, it's lame. I'm only joking. It worked out very, very well for A-Game to keep the pressure up against Cookies in the early game, and he had a very, very favorable mid-game, which just let him smash out with that Savant carrier. Obviously, that's not the plan for Descara, because he's in fact playing Coalition, but may still be a similar idea up until then. So yeah, we do have these LEVs being produced. A little bit lazy here, you could grab a quick drop, but... Oh, he does get it in the end. Just trying to maintain this LEV fabrication here. Shouldn't be too hard. Once these guys drop off as well, he won't have to do any quick drops anymore, but he's a StarCraft 2 player, you know, he can handle it. He's gonna be just fine. Uh-oh, what the... Yeah, this guy's a StarCraft 2 player, can you believe it? I hope you know I'm judging you, man. Had a bit too much beer that day, huh? Well, it is going to get up to Houston's base pretty soon. He has gotten the Sandskimmer fab, though. But the big difference I can see here is that he's not built any. And he retired the base runner, so it's a little bit different from what Cookies was doing. But Houston just now starting up a couple of Sandskimmers now. A little bit of an odd movement on the salvager right there, but he could be in some trouble here. Because, yeah, exactly, here come the LEVs to ruin your day. And he did actually go a little bit greedy here, where he built 2 salvagers with no scouting to see what was going to happen. Not like he'd get scouting, he's playing Conf, but that's why generally Conf has to build Sandskimmers immediately. So Descara has the big numbers advantage, but they're not all here just yet. He is going to take the trade now, though, so... I definitely agree, again. I definitely agree. But you know about that already. Anyway, trade doesn't go super well for Descara, but it's a 1-for-1. He's going to be okay with that. If you have the numbers advantage, sometimes actually taking 1-for-1 trades can increase your numbers advantage relatively. So that's going to be the case here, alright. Oh, trust me, A-Game. If anyone reads their walls of text, it's me. LEVs continue to try and poke in here, see if they can get some damage, but just by being here, they already do quite a lot for Descara. Houston can just drive over here. It's a pretty... You know exactly... Well, I know exactly how you think I'm wrong, but we'll get... You know, that's a different topic. We'll get there later. Anyway, Houston, for a minimal investment, can move over to this base over here, but Descara could also just kind of leave one LAV scouting that, make sure he knows if it's happening or not. A little bit dangerous to leave these guys standing still here, because the carrier missiles might be able to flump in and get you, but... Oh, and Houston does find one guy exposed. Will snap that kill up, but he loses one in return, so not a clean trade either. Uh-oh, and his carrier drifting far too far out to this direction, so yep, you'll have that. He is going to lose the salvager, I think. Either way, though, looks like Descara can definitely take this trade here. And again, on the back end, he's going to be expanding. He's already got that SC out, so Houston needs to clean this up pretty quick. 2 more Sandskimmers go down. Osprey, you're trying to joke here, but you may well be right. This is not great. And Houston does find himself under a little bit less pressure at the very, current moment, because these LABs are a little bit low health, so it looks like Descara's going to back them out. And he has a Soul Chip Fab too, so he's got a little bit of defense here, but that'll get him back up to 2 base. Descara just going to jump straight up to 3. And sure enough, his game plan is a little different. He's not going to go for the carrier rush like A-Game did, but instead taking into fighter and gunship fabrication here. Fairly early timing. I mean, you can get much faster if you go SC first into this, but his opponent not really going to be terribly ready for this. And if he goes to Interceptor Fab, this is okay, I think. If he does it like right now, he'd have to respond about that quick, but hey, look at that. Okay, good on Houston then. This is probably the right response. But it's still going to be tough because his opponent is up on 3 base already. This is tough for the Gaussian player to deal with. This is a good build, man. This is what A-Game is doing against me on the Boneyard as well. This is a good build. I'm starting to see now why this works so well. Production upgrade gonna finish just a tad late for Descara, but hey, we can forgive that. Although it is always fun to poke fun at him. Wait a minute! Oh, the joke's on me. This is the 2nd production upgrade. Jeez. Yeah, he's actually really ahead of the curve. Yeah, I think very rip is a good synopsis here. Now, to be fair, Houston is going to do better in straight-up fights because Interceptors trade better, he's going to do better in even fights because Interceptors trade better than Strike Fighters do. But the question is, when Descara has the money to actually triple pump these Strike Fighters, is he ever going to get an even fight, right? This is looking a little bit dire now. Dump it. And actually, no, I think that this PC is probably a good idea, actually. First off, PCs give pretty good anti-air, but also, I mean, ideal he gets this a little bit faster than he did, because you want this building as Interceptor Tech is teching, and then once that's done, you want to start building ints immediately. But I think it's actually not bad. It gives good anti-air, which he's clearly going to need in a moment, but it also lets it get up onto 3 base if things go well, so that's probably not inaccurate. Okay, PC's done though. He needs to instantly start building air here. Any moment he delays is going to be bad, but he does get on that, so that's good. Now, of course, Houston doesn't know, right? Like, necessarily. He hasn't seen this. I mean, who knows? There could be like a BC party bus on the way, which actually would be pretty hyped to see. But, I'm sure he suspects it. This is not exactly uncommon for the game to play out this way. Descara probably knows the numbers on exactly how many Strike Fighters you need to kill a PC here, but it's going to be a lot more than it would have been if your opponent has air to respond. So if there's a PC snipe in the works here for Descara, he may be a little frustrated in that attempt. But the main base is what I'm looking at as very juicy and succulent. I think that Descara probably would be into that. No, it looks like he's going to try for the PC snipe. So Houston wants to launch immediately then. And he will. Let's bring this PC back though. Uh-oh. Oh no, where are the Interceptors going? They need to be here now. Okay, he does live just narrowly. If he can take this fight over the PC anti-air, that's even better for him, but it looks like he can't just now. But for me, it looks like a 3-for-0 so far. He's going to fly back over the PC now, but Descara could actually still snipe this. And he's going to go for it. Uh-oh. Oh, it's solo. Oh. So it's a 4-for-0 in terms of air, I believe, but... Well, you tell me, is Descara going to be happy with the kill there? Because actually that's a lot to invest for it, but I think he probably will. At this point, probably what the air needs to do is keep him ahead rather than get him ahead, so maybe taking a trade that's not ideal is actually okay for him. We do have Missile Battery Fab started, though. Note the 2 base runners as well. The ints did not run out of ammo, no. I think they could have continued to... trade out there, maybe gotten a couple more Strike Fighters, but I don't think they could have saved that PC, really. Maybe a movement, though, and bringing this guy over could have kept it alive. Hard to say, though. Here comes a probe from Descara, wants to see if his opponent is going to move out on him here, and when, if he is, then where it's going to be. Big thing he's got to watch out for is that if he sets down ground turrets, the Interceptors could snipe them and the assault ships still stay in, but there's only 2 of them here. Does Houston have armor? Oh, he does. Okay, well, it's very nice for Houston that he's gotten armor 2 then on these assault ships. It's going to allow him to trade much better than he would have otherwise against the LAVs. He's still rebuilding air, though, rather than rebuilding that PC, and I think he feels like he just needs to. Uh-oh. Interceptors are not here, though, and these assault ships are going to start taking a lot of damage to the strike fighters from Descara. Houston is launching them, though. He's going to try and take the engage now, but I think that Descara is going to be pretty comfortable with this one. He does lose one LAV, but that's going to be okay. Down they go. And actually, this LAV blob has some pretty significant anti-air on it, too, so I think that actually Descara wins this, but for now it's a 1-for-1 trade. Although, I should say as well, a 1-for-1 trade for Descara is actually very good, because he can build these things 3 at a time, but Houston can only make 1. So that's actually totally fine. Oh, look at that. He's built another PC. Excellent. Definitely what he wants to be doing here. But Descara is going to get the 2 extracts out, and he has power 3 on the way, so I think we've seen this before. Actually, I wouldn't hate Sport Cruiser anti-air here. I mentioned this in the last game, where we watched A game do a similar thing as well. But it's going to be Assault Cruiser Fab coming up for Descara here. Descara is, of course, quite a fan of those units. Has been for a long time now. Assault ships here, going to be harassing the eco a little bit. It's wise of Houston to keep interceptors close, but he doesn't want to... Oh, actually, yeah, this is a... Oh! Oh! Nice! That's pretty cash money right there. Still, though, this is a lot of LAVs, and Descara can split this pretty nicely if he micros it properly. Looks like he has done. So the assault ships do go down there. Descara are really low on strike fighters now. He's probably going to have to transition out of that tech. I mean, by that I mean just don't build anymore. Yeah, you see the missile ships coming up? Missile batteries. Gosh dang. Yeah. Now that A-Game's pointed that out, I'm going to notice every time I do that wrong. We do have missile ship fabrication coming out now for Houston. That's probably a mistake. I don't think he needs it. I mean, if he's keeping track of how many strike fighters he's killed, he should realize, like, his opponent really does not have many left. Then again, air versus air, it is often... you know, it is often good advice to get some ground-based anti-air as well. Uh-oh, wait a minute, where's this PC going? Shouldn't he be over here? Shouldn't you have been in the testing chamber half an hour ago? That's a little strange. I feel like he's going the wrong direction, though. Houston, by the way, taking some power reserves here, but what he really needs is either Conif Siege or Railguns. I think Conif Siege is probably the better option right now. Hard for him to know that, though. He doesn't quite realize it's quite apparent that Descara's carry is this far forward. He's built a lot of base runners here. Probably in an attempt to, like, compete with the artifact pressure that Descara wants to put on, but you need field control for that. And these assault ships will only do it if, well, he's got a lot of air superiority, actually, so he could have fought it that way. PC does finally get to its position here, but just as it gets there, it's going to have to leave. And yeah, Osprey, I think you are correct. It's a carrier fight coming up here. That's good advice, A-Game. Yeah, you don't make base runners when you're behind unless they're going to contribute to, like, the fight, but base runners are an investment away from the army towards capitalizing on field control. So it's when you have control of the map. And obviously it's Descara who's in control of it. Whether or not he should be, you can debate, because Houston does have the air superiority, but this is, you know, he's not pushed out the map at all, so this is not really a time to be building base runners. Cruise missile's gonna start flomping in here, as I always say. He does have bomber fab started now. Bombers. That's probably not a good idea either. There's a lot of anti-air on this field here. Descara has not invested into the AC anti-air, but he may well do that later if he sees the bomber tech, but we'll just have to wait and see. For now, though, that's the third artifact, and the fourth is going to follow it pretty soon, too. So this is a lot of pressure here. Yeah, these ACs are really kind of the kingmakers on the field right now, as long as the anti-air cover stays with them. But again, ACs can get anti-air if he techs it, but he doesn't necessarily need to do that either. But these ACs, like, oh, look at that. He actually, yeah, Houston managed to kill off both of the remaining strike fighters from Descara. Not exactly sure what with it. Might have just been these base runners. But anyway, these ACs can just bully the entire Conf army out. And you can see already this position is really, really crippling. He's pushed them all the way around here to where Houston is off of all of his bases. And he can attempt for the base trade now, which looks like it's what he's going to do. But Descara doesn't have to leave until Houston is, like, here. And at that point, obviously, he's gonna have banked up a lot more money. And in the meantime, if he wants to, he can just start mining directly right now off of these bases. If I were Descara, that's probably how I would play this, is just drive there and start, you know, mining, and then get a support cruiser here and start mining this out. Attack Missile Barrage comes out, dumps a little bit of damage onto the Conif carrier, brings it down to 7,500. Yeah, I think that your diagnosis is probably accurate. This is not a position that anyone wants to be in. I see what you mean, like, not really a need to mine out here, you can just end the game. Yeah. I didn't believe that was true, but I'm believing now. These ACs really do a lot of damage. And Houston's carrier is not really going to be able to run away from this. It's Attack Missile Barrage to finish it off once again. Justice for ACs, but this guy does get to... Oh, but he doesn't have a name! Look at this! Look at this! This is just unacceptable. I almost said unacceptable. This guy kills a carrier, alright? And he's like, yeah, look at me, I just freaking killed a carrier. You're gonna promote me, right? Yeah, I'm not like that last guy, I'm good, you know? And they're like, yeah, sure, you can be a lieutenant. But they stripped him of his name. They took away his humanity. I can't overlook this. This is worse than the banning of God Hates Weaves. You know, it actually is. Despicable. Well, let's jump into Game 2 here, as Descara does manage to take Game 1. In pretty convincing fashion, once again, I would say. And the map is going to be the Shallows this time, picked by Houston, but the factions stay the same. Le Chalou. Often it is said this is a very, very good map for Conef and Galzian when they have the matchup against Coalition. So this is, I think, a good pick for for Houston. But you should be aware this is a map where, well, first off, it's a map where early aggression can sometimes pay off in a big way, but Descara is not going to go for that because it's just not how he is. Maybe he AV rushes every now and then, but he's really a macro player in the early game, so it's going to be SC first from him. Very good timing here. He does retire that base burner, so he's got the probe out. Well, there's just a lot of games that I've had where, like, LABs get up in the back line here, and it's a bad time for the defending player. But Descara, that's not his strategy. He's not going to play it this way. But it's a map where, like, flanks can be strong, but they can also be weak, I guess I would say. If you have control of this middle area, it's difficult for your opponent to really get around you terribly effectively. So if Houston can play it that way, if he can gain control of kind of the whole map here, he's probably going to have a bit of an easier time than he would have otherwise, I suppose I would say. PC going to be scouted here, take some shots at the pro, but it does have sand skimmers around it, so clearly the early game here is going to be some sort of a rush. You are right about that, yeah. A map you can easily die mid-game, I would agree, but in situations where a player goes for economy and you can actually push them off that second base, this map feels pretty punishing, I think, to the defender. That's been my experience so far, anyway. Wonder what would happen if I moved the third base, like, up to here. That'd be a bit interesting. No such situation. Well, I think it comes down to like flanks on the main base. If your opponent is not quite cognizant that it could be a threat. But you know what's so good about what Descara is doing with this probe here? Very, very nice placement. He'll know if his opponent is coming around that side. I think this is actually really not such a bad map for aggro, but I don't know. A-Game is usually right when we disagree, so I mean, I'm inclined to trust him. One thing I will say that I've mentioned before recently about rail rushing is that it has this power spike, which he's in right now. Notice how he's managed to just get the high ground here for free? It's because, I mean, what's Descara going to do? Obviously, once he sees him there, there's a lot more skims than he's got. But Houston needs to attack right now, right? Because right now he's in the power spike, but that will fade. Obviously, production upgrade is already done. So we're going to enter the power trough here, where Houston needs to stall for time. But as he stalls for time, it invariably involves giving up a little bit of ground here. And once he gives up the ground, A-Game is definitely correct. He's going to have permanent high ground that he's fighting up. If he went for assault chips, maybe this would be different, but this is railguns, so that's how he's going to want to play it. Much, much too passive, though. And, I mean, that's easy to say when you're not in-game, and you're looking at this carrier, it's quite scary. Oh, is this a heavy railgun? That's GG. I'll explain why in a moment. Oh, actually, you know what, though? This is a good trade for Houston. Ah, he didn't quite pressure it, though. He's just sort of holding ground here. Oh, dear. An assault railgun is out as well, though, which is going to help against the LAVs a little bit, but I think... I mean, obviously, if Descara just drives right here, he's going to lose his main base. That's why he won't do this, but... If you can win the Sandstorm trade, this is like... Yeah, now he is gonna manage to take it here. Now this PC is probably going to be forfeit, so this should be a very, very fast game for Descara, I think. He's going to take a lot of damage on the carrier, right? But again, until that bar reaches 0%, it doesn't really matter. So he's going to be totally fine taking that damage there. And yeah, I agree, A-Game in a way, but definitely you can agree with me, I think, that this was not very well executed here. The problem is that, like I said, Houston has this power spike where he's got many more Sandstormers than his opponent has LAVs, but he should know that that advantage is going to be fleeting, and that armor, by the way, is definitely a desperation move to just say, like, maybe I can not lose fights as badly, right? But it ain't easy from here. This is where Rail Rush definitely dies. And Descara knows that he's going to push the advantage there. While he's in that power spike, he needs to try and take trades. The thing is, though, if he goes for Rail Tech, he needs to stall for a bit of time here, unless he gets a lot of damage done in the early game. And after he stalls for time, he'll give up a bit of ground and have to push up through the high ground. So I think rails on this map was probably a mistake. He could maybe have done this with assault chips, but not railguns, I don't think. You know what, though? Actually, Houston isn't dead yet, which I know that doesn't sound like much, but that's actually kind of a big accomplishment here. He manages to find a spot of high ground, he takes this fight, and his kind of desperation armor has actually worked out for him, although Descara does have damage ups already. Of course, Descara can keep building, though. And Houston kept that PC alive, so he's not, you know, flat out dead, but he's not out of the woods yet. The problem is, getting to ref mode is this really insurmountable challenge now. First off, a lot of money. Yeah, okay, that PC... Oh, I don't know about this. You need another PC because you gotta fight against the inevitable LAV blob here. If you've only got one production line against his two, it's gonna be a hard time. But if you get that second PC, ref mode is really late, right? So he's going to go for the ref mode here, but it's kind of a rock and a hard place situation. This, I'd say, a big mistake, actually, because obviously LEVs with boosts can outrun you for a moment. And they'll manage to take a pretty good trade, make you retreat all the way back. You might as well have just stayed back there in the first place and not had that bad trade. I think that's what Descara is gunning up for right here. We do have damage 2 finished for him now, so this would be a good time for him to engage if that's what he's looking at. He's actually going to back away, though. I mean, he's got the numbers to take this right now. If it were me, I would just boost in and take this fight. I mean, you can see, obviously, okay, armor 1, damage 2. We're good to go. But he's going to play it a little bit more passively. I mean, who knows? Maybe there would have been something back there, like assault rails or whatever. But I think he had a moment for a good trade that he sort of passed up. And Houston builds a base runner. What the... Oh. That's what we call the big choke. Again, you build base runners if you have control of the field, right? This is a bad time to have a base runner out. It's not going to do anything for the army here, and it's a big, actually, investment of resources. It's like 250 CUs, which is not insignificant. And then it's like 60 RUs, I think, to build a base runner these days. You can't justify making that when you're not going to be able to use it, so... Armor 2 is done for Houston, though. He is attempting to keep up in the upgrade war there. He's going to be a little bit behind because he needs to get rating before he can get damage ups, but Descara is not exactly investing into upgrades right now himself. Probe does get killed by the base runner, so hey, at least it did something. Not much, though. And Descara still, I believe, has the numbers here. Barely, but he does have the numbers. He's playing it real passive. He's not going in just yet. We do have a gunship on the queue. I love that, because that's going to be really chonky over here. I think maybe what he's doing is saying, hey, this air reveal is really going to be devastating, so let's just wait for it. Just kind of Just kind of chill out until the air reveal is ready, and then we can come in with that as well and just absolutely, you know, toss him into pieces. Toss him like a chef's salad, let's say that. Just toss him into pieces is dumb sounding. Yeah, well, on the flip side, you can say why not trade when you see a good one, but it's not always as obvious, of course, as it is to the caster, so... We do have air coming out, though. Houston's not seen it, by the way. This is unscouted air. I mean, obviously they can kill this heavy railgun, but the LAVs are not going to be warded off by that, so I think that Descara is probably going to focus them on... the skims. Oh, it looks like he will actually take out this heavy rail. I suppose he might as well. It's kind of, you know, a free capitalization of damage, but he does have that gunship done now, which is going to launch. Here's that trade, and Houston's going to run into him, but he takes a lot of damage to these strike fighters, and again, like I said, these LAVs are obviously going to win this trade. He's got the upgrade advantage by 1 here, but he also has the numbers slightly. He dives on in here. It's a lot of damage done, as you can see. All of these sandstorms are going to melt now. And Houston kind of left with nothing. He didn't even build that production cruiser ever, right? I think he's building a salvager right now, but I mean, I don't know how that's going to turn out. I lie, I do. It's going to die. But there's no way that he can contest with the blob, which, to be fair, is much smaller than it has been before, but he's never going to be able to contest with this blob unless Descara chooses to tech switch away from it. But if that's the case, that's not going to be good for him, so... And by which I mean that's not going to let up on the pressure. So Houston basically has to concede map control forever now, but Descara, again, like, this is a game where... Or this is a map where if you have control of that middle, you can flank really easily. So immediately he's going to drive up here and start attacking the main base. Houston does have some anti-air building now, which is kind of nice for the strike fighters, but it's not going to do all that much against the LAVs unless he lands a legendary donk. Which I would love to see. It's unlikely though. Attack Bomber Fab coming out for Descara. I love it. Look at this preemptive split here. He knows that's what Houston goes for. Actually, the shot's kind of a miss anyway. Does manage to get the kill on that missile battery there. It means that the strike fighters can come in now if they like. They're actually going to target the carrier. He may have been planning on targeting the salvagers there, but either way, Houston's gonna tap out of this one. He doesn't want any more of this. I wouldn't either. And Descara is going to take the series 2-0 after taking this game on the shallows. Oh my gosh. Yes. Would you say, here's the question, would you say that since Houston actually killed himself, technically he should get the veterancy for this? Up to you guys. I hope you enjoyed it though. We'll move on to the next one.